The Story Without a Name by Barbey Chapter 13. As the prelate entered, Madame de Fragile rose to her feet. He bowed to her with manifest respect, but he seemed nervous, ill at ease. In the haste in which he had come to Hollande, it was clear that he had a duty to perform. Madame de Fragile motioned him to be seated, but he remained standing. "Madame," he began at once, "I have brought you the ring which you recognized as your own, and I have come to tell you," he added solemnly, "the name of the man who lost it, with his hand." As he spoke he offered her the ring, but she did not take it. At the moment it was impossible for her to touch the jewel. It had been profaned, sullied 10 times over, and moreover it had come from the amputated hand of a thief. She trembled from head to foot. "The name," she stammered. "Yes," the prelate interrupted, "the name of the man who ruined your life, whom you must have been cursed, who in religion was known as Father Ricolf of the Holy Order of Capuchins, and who, during Lent, lodged at your house 25 years ago." Madame de Fragile grew pale as a ghost. She felt her strength departing, but summoned all her energy. She prepared to ask the question on which her whole life depended. Her dark eyes, beneath which Lasthany had always lowered her own, were fixed on the prelate. "Have you only that to tell me?" she asked. "I have everything to tell you," he answered, "for he, on the cinders in which members of our order die, on which, at peace with God, he died a few days ago, told me in the last hour, with the crucifix at his lips, that he alone was guilty, that your daughter was innocent of the sin." "It was I, then!" cried Madame de Fragile in a lightning fast. Her entire life unfolded. "It was I—" With incomparable dignity the prelate interrupted her again. "It is not for me to judge you, madam. I am but the bearer of a message which must be grateful to a soul as pure as your own, that your daughter was innocent, that the guardian angel of her life was ever at her side, gazing at her with immaculate and immortal eyes." He stopped, astonished that no sign of joy was visible on the woman's face. The remorse that was there, remorse for having believed Lasthany guilty, and of slowly and tragically killing her because of it, he did not understand. "Father," she muttered, "the message comes too late. It was I that killed my child. The priest in whose guilt I could never believe did worse than that in taking her in his sacrilegious arms, but he did not kill, he sullied her. He left me to kill her, and kill her I did. By my daughter's death I consummated the crime which he began." With that she lowered her head. She was self-condemned. The prelate saw that her heart was breaking, and he had the pity for her which he had not for her daughter. He sat down and with divine charity began addressing her. He told her that her suffering was unnecessary, that she was the victim of an error which it was impossible for her not to have been the victim, and then he told her all. Concerning certain mysterious facts, science at the time possessed only a superficial and inexact data. Today, if we knew more, it is merely that they exist. Like Lady Macbeth, Lasthany had been a somnambulist. It may have been that Madame de Fragile had never read Shakespeare. In one of her accesses, which were so infrequent that neither her mother nor Agatha was aware of them, Lasthany had left her room and sat on the great stairway where so many of her waking hours had passed. There Father Ricolf discovered her, and, tempted by the demon of solitary nights, accomplished the crime of which the unfortunate girl, in the ignorance of sleep, had been wholly unconscious. But why, the crime accomplished, had he taken the ring? Was he already the thief which he afterwards became? Who shall say? In the nature of man there are mysteries which are yet unexplained. Somnambulists sometimes make presents, though that proves nothing. For my part I knew one, a young girl who gave a ring to a guilty man of the same crime as Ricolf, and who afterwards, voluntarily, though with unquestionable dread, married the horrible betrothed of her sleep. Madame de Fragile had never heard of somnambulism. What the prelate said stupefied her. She was medused by the malignity of a man who had entered her life and her daughter's like a vampire, and who, falling from the monstrous to the ignominious, had stuck to the pettiness of thief. It was here that the blue blood she had in her revolted, and thought of the theft became more insupportable than the crime. For the moment she hesitated to believe that in the final turpitude that sullied her daughter twice over. But the prelate assured her that the amputated hand of the robber had really been that of Ricolf, who, as it appeared, had become one of the foremost bandits of the day. When Agatha met him on the stairway, he had been the spectator of his crime, he was on his way to every vice. They were all of them cooking then in the pot which the Revolution bubbled over the world. It was the hour when the Church itself had need of persecution and the revivifying blood of martyrs. Years later, Ricolf had come one evening to the monastery of Briquebec. His despair was great, his repentance such as only visits the strong. "If you drive me away," he said to the abbot, "you send me back to the hell from which I came." "I and my brethren," the prelate continued, "remember that La Trappe is the refuge of criminals unpunished by men, and in the name of celestial charity we opened our door to him and shut it against the justice of the world. Father Ricolf was one of those who are excessive in all things. He endured for years among us in the most expiating penitence." "And died like a saint, I suppose," Madame de Ferjol indignantly interjected. But in a moment she was calmer, and less insultingly she asked, "Father, do you think that such a man can enter heaven?" Solemnly, the benign prelate answered, "For years he lived as he died, in that hope." "If he is in heaven, I do not want to be there with him," exclaimed Madame de Ferjol in a blind obstinacy that fully expressed her indignant rage. But the abbot, though deeply wounded, was too charitable to forsake the pitiless. He returned more than once to Hollande, endeavoring as best he might to leave her back to more Christian sentiments. In this he failed. She resisted his persuasions. In the knowledge that her child was innocent, a hatred of the Capuchin who sullied her enveloped her and confiscated to its own profit the higher sentiments of her creed. God, it may be, had forgiven, but she could not. Hatred possessed her wholly. The prelate tried to soften her, and with that emollient oil which the Good Samaritan used on him who went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, he endeavored to soothe the ulcer that ravaged her heart. But the effort was in vain. Madame de Ferjol was inflexible. The memory of hospitality violated by a priest whom she called a Judas heightened her hate, and from it, this is a thing which every passionate nature will appreciate, a horrible desire came, a curiosity which she felt she must satisfy. Madame de Ferjol was well informed in all religious observances. She knew that the Trappists are buried without a coffin, that they remain exposed, the face unveiled in an open grave, and that over the body each day a spadeful of earth is thrown until it is covered by that 6 feet of clay which suffices to us all. Her desire was to see once again the abhorred Ricolf, to gouge her eyes on the spectacle of his corpse. Hatred is like love. It must see. He died, she reflected, but recently. The face of the elect was not like that of other men. When their tomb is opened, their calm yet radiant expression shows they died in the odor of sanctity. I will see if this scoundrel, who may have duped the abbot with his repentance as he duped me with his holiness, has the face of the elect. One day, without a word to Agatha, she went to Briquebec. Women are not allowed within the walls of the Trappist monastery save on certain festivals, and only then in the church. But the cemetery, situated always in an adjacent field, is open to everyone. It was there that Madame de Ferjol went. What she sought was easily found. There was no one in the cemetery, and, amid the long grass, she discovered a recent grave, which she knew must be that of Ricolf. She approached the edge and looked down. In her eyes was that expression which hatred shares with love, a longing to devour. The corpse was there. In spite of the handfuls of earth strewn on it, the face of a man was still visible. In spite of years, in spite of the beard that had grown white, in spite of the sightless eyes which worms were eating, she recognized it at once. And the worms she envied. She would have liked to be one of them. The audacious mouth which had startled her before, and on which God with his own hand had placed a warning, she recognized as well. Standing beside the grave, forgetful of time that had passed, her eyes sank into that hated mouth that was rotting there, as the sun sinks in the horizon. The sun was behind her, and her shadow, lengthened by it, fell into the tomb, her black gown reddened by its rays. Suddenly, another shadow fell beside her own, and a hand rested on her arm. She trembled, and turned. It was the abbot. "You?" he said, with less astonishment than gravity. "You, madame?" "Yes," she answered, with a voice that trembled too. "I wanted to slake my hate." "Madame," the prelate interrupted, "you are a Christian, but what you say is unchristian-like. To stare at the dead with eyes of hate is profanation, and to the dead respect is due. To him, never, she cried. A moment ago I was about to get down into his grave and trample him under my feet. Poor woman, the prelate murmured to himself. She will die unrepentant of the feelings that are too absolute for this life. And for that matter, she did die shortly after, and that sublime impenitence which the world may admire, but which we cannot.